Good evening. I'm going to call tonight, Thursday, April 3rd, South Kingstown School Building Committee meeting to order at 6:01. And we'll go around for a roll call. Brian Sylvia.
Here.
Dave Palazetti.
Aye.
Luke Murray.
Here.
Kate Massananti, I'm here. Michael Pedraza.
Here.
Terry Lynch.
Here.
Chip McGarr.
Here.
And Jim Manny.
Here.
Great, thank you. And in the audience for our project team, we have Jeremy, Kate, and Mark. Yes? Jeff. I literally always get someone's name wrong in every meeting that I'm in. It's usually you. I give you random last names. I apologize. And you can call me kind of whatever you want in return, so. We do, going right on to item 2, public correspondence. I did have an email forwarded to me from Chris Spiegel. This question was from someone by the name of Carson M, or Carson RM. Question, where is the school going to be put? Like, can there be a top view map on the website showing the street names? And the response was, the school will be located on School Street to the east of the Hazard Building. And we do have a site map available in the gallery on the website, which has the details that this person was looking for towards the bottom of the homepage. There are also more detailed plans available in the document library of the website. And Chris has encouraged this person to reach out if they have any other questions or need any further guidance. I guess my only suggestion is, and Kate, if you can relay this to Chris, is maybe we should have an easy link to the map in particular, because that is definitely a topic that people are often looking for. So that is the only public correspondence that I'm aware of at the moment. Alrighty, so we'll go on to new business item number 3. I put this on the agenda, a discussion around the Veterans Memorial plaques and a plan for moving from the current high school into the new high school. I was here for the town council meeting. It feels like a year ago, but I think it was last Monday. And there was the announcement of honoring our veterans in the community and putting up the banners. And there was a lovely woman who kind of grabbed me on my way out, and I can't remember her name. Who's the woman who presented the banners? Sorry to put you on the spot. I just, off the top of my head, I can't remember. But she was concerned because our auditorium is a Veterans Memorial Auditorium, and there are a lot of plaques around the school honoring our veterans from all wars. So we just wanted to make sure that it was on our project team's punch list to make sure that those get moved and reinstated in the new high school in a way. And I believe there's already a plan to do that, but I just wanted to make sure we documented it, made sure it is on the list, and make sure that those items do get moved and memorialized accordingly.
Yeah, and I agree. I just wanted to also bring up too, and I know it's not the agenda item, so we'll have to do this at a different meeting, but essentially, I think we'll be looking for guidance for how to determine what things will move over to the new building versus the stuff that's not, because we don't want to overdo, but important items like what you're mentioning and some other things that have come up over time of like, oh, let's remember this because like the rock that's out in front that says South Kingstown High School on it, like that could be something that could be easily moved. It's been there for a long time if we want to. I think just at some point we really would be looking for guidance to how to discern what moves over and what doesn't move over.
Absolutely. There's I know that was a gift, I think, from the class of either 88 or 89, the plaque you're referring to. And then there are also in our courtyards, there are different memorializations for students that we have lost in the past. And so again, just making sure that we have guidance on that.
And I believe also a tree too. So
yes, correct.
It's just,
Yep.
So for a future meeting, definitely like how do we do that?
Yep.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, I think
starting point would definitely be to assign, a task force or a group to identify important and impactful signage. Would definitely don't want to make that decision. It should be made with the school community. We're happy to assist and guide in creating an inventory list, which will be shared with both the construction manager and the design team to identify places in the building to relocate items, and then also in our demolition plans to identify what needs to be salvaged. And then everything else to be saved we'll identify during the move management process if it's a plaque on a wall or something that's easily removed.
Perfect, thank you for that. Does anyone have any other comments or?
Separate issue. It just got me thinking, like for the boosters clubs, like what are the rules for if they wanted to sell pieces of the stage or sell pieces of the gym floor to do fundraising?
That's a great question. Do we have any precedents that people
That's
are
more
aware
of a town
or?
question.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we can identify if it's a stage or if it's bricks that we want to try and salvage. We would just identify that as part of our demolition package, and it just gets set aside.
Because to your point, and I know we're kind of getting a little bit off the agenda item, but I know the athletic boosters at one point was talking about auction off pieces of the swamp, just kind of as a fundraising type of tool and also sentimental. So along those lines, but I think it can all be kind of included in that same conversation and agenda item at a future meeting. Perfect, thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to share on that? Okay. That brings us to new business items, agenda item number 4, current update around the facilities maintenance director role on the school building committee in particular. Mr. Pedraza, do we have any sort of update around where we are in the search for a facilities maintenance director?
So the district has posted on School Spring and cross-posted on other employment sites, and we are currently in round 1 of the process and of interviews.
Okay, perfect. And so accordingly, once we get closer and closer and we have someone who has joined our district, then we can, of course, work on setting up kind of a transition plan with Mr. Mahoney.
And there has been a specific question in the interview process regarding the expectation as well as the requirement of them serving and the necessity of them to serve on this committee.
Beautiful. Great. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that topic? Okay, and that brings us to item number 5, discussion. This one's kind of, it looks like it's a big item agenda, but it really is just kind of mapping out updates on our schedule with upcoming hearings, public forums, and essential meetings. Kate, if you don't mind helping me with this one.
Pull up my schedule quickly. So I want to kind of break this into 2 different buckets. We have the first thing that's identified is really relating to the local approval efforts that we're going to be moving forward with as part of this project. Some of the earliest approvals that we need to do are through our planning department. We have state approvals as well. This is particularly focused on the planning department. It's really our first step in tackling our local approvals. So the first item that we have on the agenda listed is the public engagement forum. So we want to announce that publicly here. It is going to be April 9th at 6 p.m. We encourage not just abutters, but anybody from the public to join. That meeting is specifically focused on the site work, site logistics, not necessarily on the exteriors of the building or the floor plans. That will be a later meeting. This is something we are doing as part of our planning application. It's an early notification to our abutters, just getting them familiar with the project, getting them up to speed, allowing them to ask any questions. From there, we're moving into our second pre-application meeting to really get an early handle on our application. We'll go into our full planning application at the end of April, which should take us through May for our hearing and into June for our approvals. In addition to the planning department, not shown on here, another kind of upcoming milestone is going to be our Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management permit. That's another one that we're going to start the process early. It does take quite a while, and it is a requirement of our planning department as well as our building official to be able to get permits to start work. So that's another one that we've got starting after our design development drawings are due. We're looking at about May 19th to start that process. Aside from the local approvals, one of the other things that we're looking at is our additional programming and page turn meetings. So you see the school safety meeting and stakeholder meetings that are on here. We have had programming meetings with the design team with the stakeholders in the building, right? Faculty members particularly, just making sure that the floor plans align with the required program in the school. We're expanding that effort as a page turn for school safety and IT. We talked about facilities as well, so making sure that lots of different stakeholders are also involved in this project, not necessarily just the faculty. That will also extend to some of the local government, or some of the local officials as well, our police department, fire department, the planning departments involved in those conversations as well. And then sustainability committee, I do believe, happens a little bit later in the process, but that will be another important meeting that takes place as part of our design development review. Building
Kate.
Design public forums.
Kate, I'm sorry,
Yes.
going back to this, the school safety, will you be setting that meeting?
Yes, so we have a couple of different stakeholders that need to be involved in that.
Okay.
So we're looking for some assistance from Mr. Pedraza to help set that up, as well as working with Luke and having town involvement in that meeting as well, and then roping in the design team to make sure that they get that scheduled. So that's something that we'll set up in the next few weeks, but we don't have it penciled in yet. And then another public forum to review the design development plans as a whole. In addition to just the landscaping, we'll be doing the entirety of the project, and we'll be looking to do that after we get some initial pricing back from our design development set. So that'll be in the mid-May timeframe that we're looking to do that.
So I just want to circle back to the school safety meeting, because I know, Jim, you're quite passionate about this based on your previous experience and different roles that you've had, and then working with our school district safety team. But I want to make it sure that, and of course Chief Moynihan, but I just want to make sure that it's clear. Mr. Manny does have extensive background in this particular topic to ensure that his voice is brought to the table too.
We did not pick a date yet, though, right?
I just checked my notes, and it looks like we're targeting the week of the 14th to hold
April?
Of April to hold that meeting.
On the Thursday?
We haven't picked a date yet. This will be a
Okay.
daytime meeting
Oh,
April or May?
of April.
Yeah, no, we were, what I would suggest is we might not want to pinpoint a date right now. I think that all the folks who would need to be, might want to have a little meeting or get together to discuss that, because we do have our spring break for our school employees, which make up our district, most of our district team, and then of course just making sure everybody's schedule is.
Yeah, I think we can be flexible with whatever works for everybody.
Does anybody have any other?
We have budget meetings scheduled for April 15th and 17th as well. So just
With the school, yes. And the other one that I wanted to kind of highlight, just bring kind of more of a spotlight to it, is the Building Design Public Forum. The tentative planning for May, probably towards the end of May, I'm assuming, and really just to highlight that this is actually another public forum where we're bringing the full design and current completed design to the community for full, review, question, answer scenario. So the abutters meeting on the 9th is strictly site design so people understand what the construction process looks like with their adjoining properties. Full community is welcome, but it's really for our abutters, where at the end of May, it would be a public design, a full building design public forum that we would be shooting for. Does anybody have any?
Just wanted to highlight one thing for the group, because the town council's focused on schedule. DEM is, and correct me if I'm wrong, probably our single most important one, which isn't on here, but it is as part of the schedule. You mentioned it, getting the RIPD's permit and some of the permits we need for stormwater and whatnot. So that's why we need to lock down the design and get through the planning process to a point where we can submit on that, because that is going to be the single biggest hurdle on the schedule. And if that doesn't come through, we don't have a lot of weight over a state agency. So unless other people intervene on our behalf. So I just wanted to bring that up, because I know the council is specifically focused on schedule. And right now, our internal path is fine. As long as we can get to planning board and we run the process, it's going to be DEM that's the issue.
All right, unless anybody has any other questions or comments around schedule, upcoming meetings. That brings us to new business item number 6, discussion action, early bid full GMP, guaranteed maximum price, versus early bid package phased GMP that had been kind of directed by the RIDE SBA to explore. And Kate and or anyone else on the project team, Gilbane, if we could talk to, we explored these two options and clearly kind of lean towards one versus the other. And if we could have any sort of, what I would love for this body to do, if comfortable, is to kind of give direction on which path they would like us to continue down before moving forward.
Yeah, so I'll hand it over to Mark from Gilbane to run through a document that they pulled together. We had asked Gilbane to identify different scenarios if we were to execute GMPs at different phases. The RIDE is requesting that we have a full GMP, guaranteed maximum price, construction contract at the end of design development, which is kind of our interim design phase. Versus doing an early bid package and a full remaining GMP at the conclusion of construction documents and bidding documents. So they put together some numbers to study those different durations, and then I'll kind of take back over after Mark and give you a little bit of thoughts I've had about some additional conversations I've had about GMPs at DD.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Luke, I guess if I could ask you to call that up for everybody to see. No, there should be one. Actually, nope, that is it. I'm sorry.
Can you tip that one so we, look, can you tip that one so we can see it? Thank you. You see that? Yeah, sorry.
Yep, that looks good. So I guess to kick it off, so we've been charged by RIDE to take a look at producing this GMP at design development. And I can tell you it's not typically done. I could tell you we probably have never done it in the K through 12 market in Rhode Island for any of the projects that I'm aware of. So we took a look at this to see what would happen. And what's going on is you're being asked to lock into a full contract amount at a time where the design is probably a little more than 50% finished. So obviously what's happening is we're shifting a lot of risk onto the contractor. You guys are guaranteed and locking in your numbers. The risk is then shifting to us to be able to do this for that amount of money with a design that's not completed. So what happens is, to protect ourselves, we're going to put in additional estimating costs, contingencies, different additional design allowances, and additional CM contingencies to help protect us at this particular time of the design. So we took a look at this. A lot of these numbers that you're looking at are coming from a historical aspect from our estimating group. We have done this in the past on projects, typically not in New England. There's been a few up and down the East Coast that we have done this on. So these numbers and these percentages are coming from a historical background. None of these are coming from a job that was done for a school. They're all other construction projects for other markets where these are coming from. So what's happening somewhere in July, we're guessing design development's done in the end of April. Gilbane's done their estimate by the end of May. We've done some reconciliation continuing on after that. We haven't done any buyout. We have no sub-input. So at that point, you're looking at an increase from an estimating standpoint of about $6,900,000. And that's for our estimators to cover themselves with, as they're estimating it, they didn't miss a decimal point, they didn't make an assumption that was wrong, things along those lines. That's what generates that particular additional cost. There's also an additional design allowance that we would be putting in because obviously the design isn't finished at that point. It's only, like I said, a little over halfway through. So there's an additional design allowance that gets added onto that. And then, of course, Gilbane's contingency, which is just covering Gilbane's risk and shifting it really from the owner to the contractor at that point. Those numbers are over and above the percentages that are typically carried below the line, below the design development cost. So those would be in addition to those same line items that you see in the SD package. So at the end of the day, we would be at a variance from our regular schematic design of about $16 million. So yes, the town would be locked into a number, but that number would be increased by the amount of $16 million to do it at that particular stage. The pros of it, again, for the town, it's an extremely early price lock-in. You know what your number is. A lot of the cons to doing this, and mostly from our side, is, again, you're going to raise your contingency for your construction manager because of the risk. You're going to increase your design allowances. You're going to increase escalation and those kind of things. Tariffs are not included here because we haven't bought out any packages, so that those couldn't be reflected in here. And what's happening is all of these contingencies, all of these allowances, they're all being shifted over to the contractor, right? So the town is losing its ability to control the contingency and control the allowances. They're all going to us because we're locking into them and we're going to hold them. So it limits the town's ability as the job is progressing to release contingency if they were still holding it based on where the job is at that time. So what's going to happen is we're going to hang on to everything. The contractor's going to hang on to everything, and it won't be released until the end of the project once we know that we're covered by whatever costs may come up during the project. So this is definitely a worst case scenario to be from our standpoint, to be doing it in design development, and from a cost standpoint as well for the town. So the other columns, as you move your way down, just progress through the various other stages of design. So the next set after that would be the 60% CD set, which is due to ride after design development. If we were to not have locked in at design development and moved on to this stage of the game, we have bought out our site work, we have bought out our concrete, we've bought out our steel and our long lead items. That represents about 25% of the overall project, which is that 25% number you see there. So subsequently, we can reduce all of those costs that are contingencies and allowances that we just reviewed in the design column. So you'll see those go down because we've locked in and have confirmed at least those early packages. So again, it's a list of pros and cons. It's just getting certainty out of the early prices. They're going to be hard bids. They're going to be hard contracts to those contractors, which again, the cons, it releases more of those percentages of allowances and contingencies. And then the next column moves over to the 100% CDs, where again, in addition to those contracts that were bought, now your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, your exterior envelope is probably bought in that time frame. So you're probably at about a 70% buyout. So again, you're further reducing those allowances and those contingencies, and your overall prices, coming down now from that 16 million to the $1.5 million, I think, in that column there. And then last but not least is you wait till your 100% CDs are done. There's one last set that's made called the conformance set, which just incorporates any of the changes and any of the things that have come in afterwards. By that point, we've bought everything out, and all of those allowances, all of those contingencies that we're holding on our side aren't needed anymore, so they're not reflected there, and you're actually back to your original SD estimate starting point. So that's the pros and the cons of doing this. I can tell you the next page after that, Luke. We took a case study from Johnston Elementary School, which we're in construction with right now, in which we did not lock in a DD. We went through the process that I just outlined in buying the packages at different sets and getting all the way to the end. So we've checked it and we've managed it doing it that route, and at the end of the day, we started with our 60% estimate in this particular project at the top. And as we bought those packages, you can see how they came in cheaper, and ultimately saved $2.6 million. So there's some concern that the town loses its flexibility because we're locking into these packages early, but this analysis shows that at the end of the day, the overall GMP came in less, $2.6 million less than what the budget was at the starting point. And we have other case studies for East Providence, Newport, that are all under construction now. There's one in Cranston, again, that would bear out exactly what you're seeing here. So if the concern is that you're losing your ability to control the overall project until it's at the end, it's not bearing out to be that in any of the other projects that we've been doing. So that's where we are. I open it up to questions, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, before Kate takes over, does anybody have any questions about what we've just explained? That was a lot of numbers and quickly digest.
Yeah.
But if anybody has any thoughts or questions that they'd like to go through.
Again, it's not something typically done, I don't think we've ever done it K through 12 in Rhode Island, and we've done a lot of work in Rhode Island.
Just for public and those online, this is essentially, if this was done, this is a one-way. This is a lock-in guarantee, and that's great if there's savings. But if there isn't savings, there's no rebate, there's no percentage refund if costs were to. So is there a level of lock-in, or is this strictly once you're locked in and you win if prices continue to exceed what you've locked in at, essentially quote unquote win, not Gilbane. But it doesn't work the other way around. So if you lock in and rates or things go lower, you're locked in at that higher rate.
So we're going to be holding the contingencies and those allowances that I was speaking to earlier. So as the job is progressing through the design phase and through the bidding phase and more packages are being awarded to the contractors, there's certainly a chance, those contingencies and those allowances aren't necessarily locked in. Like they don't become the bottom line. They're just now on our side to help us control our risk for having done it this way. But no, at the end of the day, the town could theoretically get back contingency and get back allowances for after it's fully bought out and not needed anymore. Those would all go back. So it's not a lump sum.
The con to that, we wouldn't have control over that until the end of the project versus as we move through the project.
Correct. We're going to hang on to those contingencies and those allowances to cover ourselves until we know we don't need them anymore, which would be the end.
And generally, it's a cost share to give the incentive for you to actually, as a contractor, to save money. Because if they were just saving money on our behalf, not really a lot of incentive there. So you're not going to get that full contingency back.
Yeah, shared savings is a slippery slope. So one thing I will say about kind of both sides of the coin as far as a GMP at DD. I do have a colleague that does these typically, that does these early GMPs in a different market sector. And you do have a certain level of price certainty. You are locking in a price for a design, for a project, earlier in the project. What it does come with, though, are amendments to that contract. So at each other phase of design, anything that is changed or further developed, if it is not in line with the assumptions that are made, there will be an additional cost. And the reason why I strongly disagree with this method is anybody that has worked in this industry knows after you sign that contract, your leverage is gone. So anybody that has signed a change order knows that they're inflated significantly. Anybody that's gotten a credit during construction knows that it is deflated significantly. So we have the best negotiation power on our project by doing what we're proposing is 2 GMPs. We are doing an initial GMP, that is that 25 to possibly up to 30% of our total project is going to be our early release packages. That is going to be a construction contract. We are going to have price certainty on those packages. Those are some of the things we need to do first, and they're some of the most pivotal parts of the project. We'll also know at that point where we stand in comparison to our estimates. Did the bids come in where we thought they were going to come in? Did they come in higher? Did they come in lower? And then we can pivot the remaining building design if we need to. It does also incentivize Gilbane and their subcontractors to remain competitive to get the rest of the job. They don't want to leave. They don't want to get kicked off the job. They want to stay and finish it. So it keeps that market more competitive and allows the design team to work through the final details. A very complete set of bidding documents will receive the best price. When you have uncertainty, it means cost. So this colleague of mine did say your price certainty comes at a minimum of 10 to 15% premium because of the allowances and assumptions that are made on an incomplete design. So while I understand the conservative nature of having that cost certainty, it's almost a false cost certainty because any changes between that incomplete design and the finished documents will increase the cost of your contract. And if we lock in right on target and right on budget with our 10 to 15% premium, we're at risk of going over.
Does anybody else have any clarifying questions they'd like to ask either Mark or Kate? I appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into this because clearly Dr. De Silva at RIDE SBA, he had very strong thoughts on it, and as you said, you can understand the thoughts and understand the let's explore it method. I know personally everything that I'm hearing from you all, I can sort of see both sides, but I actually really can only see the early bid side most clearly because it's clearly a risk for everybody involved if you guarantee a maximum price on something that's not even completely designed yet. So that's kind of when I look at it from again, I always reflect back to if I'm overhauling my bathroom and someone comes in and they gives me a full guaranteed maximum price, but I haven't even sat down with them and picked out the tiles and the fixtures. Clearly you're going to inflate the cost. And not that you would, but you might want to keep that inflated cost even if the price actually comes in lower. So I can appreciate it. Now, again, that's my own personal perspective. That we clearly have other people sitting at the table who might want to share their perspective, but I would like a clear direction on this item for us to move towards, because I don't think we can really delay on this much longer as far as which way we wanna go.
I was at the meeting, and many of us were. Had some back and forth to ride on this. I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's that analogy of trying to get a general contractor, let's say, lock in a cost based on a back of a napkin sketch. You know, what are they going to do? They're going to bid it extremely high. And of course, they're not going to pass on any of the savings, right? So I'm not quite sure where this came from, because even when pressed, Dr. De Silva didn't present any examples of other communities who had done this in Rhode Island, and actually just cited some articles in an email that he sent to us saying, hey, I've seen this elsewhere. That may be great for certain industries. We don't have a 10 to 15% margin to spend on that risk. Right? We're a very thin margin project. If you're a private developer and you're building a hotel or something and you're okay with spending a premium because you're more worried about time and certainty that in that market, that may make sense. That's not this project. So I appreciate the analysis because we have to get over this hump. I did ask Dr. De Silva, like, are we going to get hung up at design development because RIDE won't sign off on early bid packages? And I got the soft, like, you know, wave of the finger, like, well, not necessarily, but this is a local project. That's what it comes down to. Town is primarily funding this. We appreciate RIDE support, but the feeling on it is, you know, if we prove this out, which I believe you have, we need to move forward and what's best for the town. So that's where I stand. That's where I'd recommend we stand, because clearly we're trying to save everyone money along the way, in addition to keeping the process rolling. And I think this is the best way to do it.
Anyone else? Okay, we do need a motion on this item. So if someone would like to make any particular motion on what direction to give our team here so that we can move forward.
So what would you recommend for a motion? Like continue on with an early bid GMP process, or Dave, you want to take that one?
Nah, I'm waiting for her.
Or do we even need
You're gonna put me on the spot for this one.
Do we even need a motion, or do you guys just need the direction? I would prefer, because it is listed as an actionable item, I would prefer to have that.
I would say, motion to move forward with an early GMP and following up with a final GMP upon the completion of bid documents. But I'd have to think about that wording a little bit more, because that's not very clear.
So I'm trying to figure out too. So we definitely don't want an early GMP. I mean, we were very deliberate in going, construction manager at risk because of the benefits of construction manager at risk. If you do this, you're basically becoming a design build, and we don't want to do that. So I'm just a little confused. Were you saying that you would be okay going into the 60% SD, or excuse me, 60% CD, and then doing your early packages? I don't think that was the original intent. The original intent was to go fully through CD and then go after a GMP.
We have an early bid package.
Yeah.
And that will be a complete set of documents
All
for
right.
our
So you're going to pull that
civil.
off completely,
Yes.
do an early bid set.
We're gonna bid these pieces.
Yeah, which is
while
going to
they're
be
build-
site
while they're
work,
designing the
site
remainder
work
of the
and
building.
foundation. Okay.
Yes.
Get the steel on the site.
So it's
okay.
site work. It is concrete. It's steel. Long lead items like our switchgear, transformer potentially.
Yeah.
So those are the bulk of them. We also were discussing in an internal team meeting today about the potential for adding on demolition and abatement to that. That scope of work is not going to change. It's not going to happen till the end of the job, but we can get the price certainty on it, which would bring us up to about 30% of the overall project that has hard bids on complete designs for those scopes of work, while the design team is continuing to work on the remainder of the building MEP systems.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Would it include the Curtis Corner site, or is this just the high school we're talking about?
This is just the high school at this
Okay.
point.
So on the, if we look at the item on the agenda, it's saying early bid full GMP versus early bid package phase GMP. So is that the correct language we want to use? Like, meaning we're picking one or the other? Is that what the goal here was? That's how
I feel like the wording in the agenda is a little bit confusing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's,
Okay.
so you're looking for.
So
you're
maybe we
looking
could
for
say
the-
we would move forward with a multi-phase GMP versus a GMP at design development.
Right.
Okay.
So maybe I think that could be
Dave,
the
I'm
term we
happy to
use as
second,
a
but
move forward
Yeah,
with
so
a
you
wanna repeat
multi-phase
that?
GMP approach.
So the motion is to move forward with an early bid package GMP followed by additional GMPs at amendments to GMPs at additional phases for the high school.
I'll second.
So so I just, we're a body of the town council, and so, ultimately, they're the ones expending funds. So I would suggest this body is making a
We're
recommendation.
making a recommendation. So the
Right,
motion is
so-
a recommendation to proceed with a early bid package GMP followed by additional GMP amendments.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you for doing that. That
Yeah,
motion
thank you
passes.
thank you for walking us through that. I mean, it is, I've never heard of it done before, but I'm very excited about having the early bid on the early work. And in fact, you're breaking it off. I appreciate you doing that. That's nice.
That brings us to new business item number 7, discussion action. I don't think there will be action on this in particular, but a presentation of the updated design of the new South Kingstown High School.
Good evening, everyone. Jeff Bento from the SLAM Collaborative. So tonight, I'm going to share some updated renderings that we've put together showing progress exterior design, where we're currently at with the new high school. So if Luke, if you don't mind sharing the presentation. I do want to stress this is progress. This is not final design. Just keep that in mind when you see these images. So the first image that will come up eventually is the rendering, the previous rendering that we showed about a month ago to the school building committee, just to get a refresher of where we're at before. So this right here, this was the view from School Street. Some of the feedback that we had received was the blue that we're showing on the blue ribbon was too light. So we made adjustments to that blue ribbon to match the color of South Kingstown High School color. The tan brick didn't seem like it was well received, so we revisited the color of the brick on the building itself, and we're showing parent drop-off in the front of the building, or I should say on the School Street side of the building. We've now swapped that with the bus drop-off. So if you don't mind going to the next image. So this right here, this is where we're currently at. Like I stated, we made the blue ribbon darker to match the color of the high school logo. The brick, we're still evaluating brick colors on here, but what we're showing is our method or our strategy would be to show 2 different colors of brick. One would be a darker brick, and the cladding for the remainder of the building would be a lighter color brick. Since we have the dark blue, we want to show more of a contrast on the building. We don't want to have too many dark colors because then it just becomes a monochromatic building. So this rendering right here, this is showing a dark charcoal brick, and that is below that ribbon element. And we are showing a lighter gray brick for the remainder of the cladding on the building. So we're looking at there's really 2 main entrances to the building. We have our south entrance, which is the entrance from School Street. That'll be the bus drop-off and visitor entrance during the day, during the school day. And then on the opposite side, the north entrance, we're calling it the north entrance because that will be the entrance where most students will come in, where parents will drop them off to the school, and larger community events that would take place either in the gym or the theater. So this image right here, this is showing the view from the parent drop-off space. Please disregard the site right now because we are one step behind our site team and landscape team. As they fully develop their plan, we're trying to follow in behind them. So once their site design is completed, we will update it in this model here. But looking at this side of the building, we tried to carry the language that we had provided from the School Street side to this side right here to clearly identify that main entrance on this side of the building. If people are parking on the student parking lot side, they will know to enter the building from this side right here. The site area you'll see on the lower right-hand corner, that will be the outdoor learning classroom, not depicted here in this rendering right now, but that is where it'll be located. And then on the left side, where that green area is right outside the cafeteria space, there would be outdoor dining seats right outside of that space. So that large glass element there, the cafeteria is behind that space. We have classrooms directly above the north entrance vestibule space. And then we have classrooms on the right-hand side of the academic tower, and we have a stair tower directly to the right of that north entrance. So the blue ribbon, that is called a tactile panel, which is a high-performance concrete panel. It's manufactured in Pennsylvania, so it is a U.S. product. We don't have to worry about it being imported outside of the country. And then, as I talked about, the remainder of the building would be glass and brick. And any curtain wall that spans between multiple floors, like we have some areas where it's spanning between the second and third floor, we would have what's called spandrel panels in the curtain wall. So they're basically infill panels. They're opaque. They're not transparent or translucent like regular glazing would be. That is there to keep that element of the curtain wall, but it hides the floor structure behind it since we're spanning multiple floors. And if you go to the next image, Luke, this is a vantage point taken further back from the student parking lot, looking on the north elevation of the building itself. You can see that blue ribbon area that we're looking at before. Off to the left, we have the fitness center, which is in front of the gymnasium space. There's a element, that blue ribbon element, that wraps the entrance to the gymnasium there. And then the space in between the gym on the left-hand side and the north entrance area and cafeteria on the right-hand side, there's going to be the kitchen and the boiler room. And the reason for that line of trees right there is because we're going to have a pretty substantial outdoor mechanical unit that will sit on a pad, and we're putting that in a mechanical yard itself, but we are going to screen it with a seat wall and vegetative screening because we need a barrier, acoustic barrier, and also I don't think anyone wants to see a mechanical unit on that side of the building either. So we're going to try to mask it as much as we can. And as we continue to develop this, our next steps eventually will be to show a rendered fly-through of the building so you can see the entirety of the exterior. That'll be our next step as we finalize the site design and make sure things are a little bit more accurate in the image. So that's where we're at right now, if anyone has any questions.
Feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions at will.
I'm an engineer, not an architect, so I apologize in advance. And I know you said you haven't picked your brick color yet, but
We're evaluating multiple options right now.
But all the renderings that the folks liked when we did the public sessions were traditional red brick, like the mills, and we're working in the gray range, which I know is the more modern look. So did you guys deliberately do that? Are we still looking at red? Is red not a good option? If you could just talk that.
We are still looking at red. I will admit, because working with Mark Rhodes obviously on this, we put red brick on it, but the second color we still haven't landed on because we want two different colors. So when we put those two colors together, we're not just fully convinced that it works yet. So we will present that as an option. We're just not ready to do that at this point because we're not confident in it ourselves. So if we're not confident, we don't want to present it in front of you all. But yes, we're still evaluating brick colors. Other brick colors, and red is definitely one of them.
Thank you.
Was the change, was some of these changes related to choices that we made regarding value engineering, or is this due to feedback, or combination of both?
Combination of both. So we did take value engineering into account when we did this. We had to quantify different elements of the cladding system. So the glazing, we're still keeping that in mind. We're trying to collect the glazing and put it where it's most appropriate, which would be the cafeteria space or the more communal spaces. So on the other areas of the building, we don't have as much glass because we don't really need it in an auditorium. We don't really need it in back of house spaces behind the auditorium, and we don't need as much in the CTE spaces. So we're trying to, and we certainly don't need any in the boiler room or much in the kitchen space either. So we're trying to take all that and basically, as Mark Rhodes stated, I think he said, use it for the most impactful areas of the building.
So, maybe my prior life has got me a little concerned. Do we still have air conditioning as part of this project?
Yep.
Okay, because again, the 3 floors without air conditioning would be a deal breaker, but also now turning to a darker color, absorbing the sun and things that way. So again, I know if it's part of value engineering, so be it, but
Are you?
it's just in terms of for me, it was just a kind of a radical shift of, while the other one, and I see where we're going with contrast, having, again, looking at it looks very different. And so
I know I panicked too. When I saw the 3-story glass, I was like, oh, holy heat gain, but it's on the north side. So,
I was just going to say it's on the north side.
That's,
But this is why we're showing this,
Yeah,
to get this
okay.
feedback. So,
Yeah,
like I said, it is progress.
yeah, again, I've got the bias in terms of the gray, where I think, poured concrete, immovable, as well as then start to think of, makes me think of the main CCRI campus, which I am not a fan. I'm sorry. That's what I think of when I think of gray buildings. I also think of my former life. East Greenwich High School was just this gray poured concrete. You're not moving anything. A great bomb shelter, but in terms of warmth and inviting, especially if you're not going for a modern feel, a little surprising.
I'll be a little more brutal, because that's a brutalism, right? It gives me inklings of, I used to work in Boston City Hall. It gives me that feeling, right? So, it's not but you're working with brick. Brick is very versatile. I like the choice of going to brick, and it was actually cheaper. So that gives us some options. I keep going back to, we sold the bond on a design that generally we had good feedback on, right? And we keep kind of trying to go off of that model when we had something that it seemed like the community was on board with. So I would just urge you to go back to what we had and review why they liked it. Like, it had, I think, warmer colors, and it wasn't overly complicated. I think it was a brick concept, and there were some details I think people liked. So I like, this is like picking wall color, and it's not my lane, because this is a community thing, but I'm just, my impressions, and I'm just going back in my mind to the early meetings and the feedback we received from the public, and that, like, I feel like we're moving a little bit further from that than closer. So I don't know if there's options to maybe come up with how quick it is to render like a few different options and go to the public, and again, be careful how many you ask. Like, it's like asking, like, what wall paint do you want? But maybe a couple options side by side. It's always easier to select among maybe a couple limited options versus one.
Yeah, changing color is not that difficult for us. It's just making appropriate options first to be presented. So we can absolutely, certainly do that. We will do that.
That building's wicked ugly. I don't, that's not, it looks like it's in El Paso and Tucson. I mean, the town was pretty specific. They wanted a traditional red brick. Sorry. I don't have a filter.
So I
That's
personally don't
okay.
think it's wicked ugly. I'm glad you went with a deeper blue versus that like royally blue. The question I think really is do we need the blue? Is that something that is that limiting options because of the striping, or is that something that is intentional because we want to delineate different areas of the building?
Well, the ribbon itself is intentional, but we might, I mean, if the blue, do we want to incorporate the blue in the building is the question. If we go with red brick, then we might come up with a different color option for the ribbon, if that works better.
I'd also put out there that in terms of something to consider is we've got the Hazard building there, and whatever, not that it, certainly don't want it to be brown and white. However, in terms of considerations of how that is going to make that stark contrast go and make it stick out as so different than the surrounding areas, it's a tough thing to work with. So to have that be as different from what is also not going to move and cannot change historically and could never match that same color scheme, it's going to make that really stand out in stark contrast and have a negative, I think, reaction to too drastic from the originals.
It's a great point because I think that was kind of one of the also a clear message when we had the original meetings with the public as far as getting their input is to clearly not to make it look exactly like the Hazard building, but to make sure that it complemented it. So making sure we take that into consideration.
I think so I'll start with a positive. I actually do like the amount of natural light that would come in, especially in those common, like I don't want to lose the windows. I think that's really important, especially in the common areas. Our building right now is so dark, and to have the amount of thought going into that light, I appreciate that. I think it's going to be really good. So I don't want to lose that, but I want to echo what everyone else is saying that about that. The traditional brick is really what took off, what people liked. So I think it needs to look more traditional. With all the extra light, I think that's really important. Our current building looks too similar to that, and it's just not a good-looking building. And the one thing though here is that we don't have maroon for some random reason. So I big applause there. We got blue in the navy blue family. So that's great. I don't know why our school has lots of maroon all over it, but the brick color, it's just too similar to what we have right now. And I think if we really want that stark change from like the old building goes away and it's like, wow, look at this. This is new. Much more light. It's got that. The navy blue, it's got that. And then I think it needs to be a more traditional color. And I think I like the spacing around it. I mean the lots, like the roads, this looks so much better. How clean everything is with an outdoor classroom and so forth. The landscaping piece of it, I think it looks really good. It's just, I think it's going to be more traditional looking, and so that really draws that contrast to our current building.
Yeah, 100%. I'll second that. I think, and I focus on the color. The fact that we're talking about the brick color, that's a easy change for the most part. The lighting, the layout, the site work, I mean, that all looks great. It does. It really looks great. I agree with Chip on that.
On the rendering, though, what is the chance of getting white roofs? In terms of, is that a realistic? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just thinking, thank you.
One suggestion, I know, try it with maybe out the blue. The blue is limiting, right? Because I can see it being limiting. I understand what you're trying to do, and because we've been like, hey, rebel blue, right? But that can be done through accents, the lettering on the building, I know you have channel lettering where the theater is, like, subtle is okay, right? Neutral with, some of the accents. So, because the blue is almost, it's really emphasizing the modern characteristic of the building. And I think that's exactly counter to what the community was saying, was like, we like more traditional. We like our heritage and stuff. And I think you're trying too hard, my personal opinion, might be trying too hard to fit that in.
Eventually, that's what, that is some of my concern about any, going too light on some. It's going to, at some point, end up, especially given, 600 to 700 plus faculty and community use, that obviously going with anything too light is going to get dirty, or, we have to then, there's a certain amount of power wash and maintenance, as well as, that's a consideration and a lesson learned previously about not doing walkways, with nicer materials, because when snow blowers go over that, it's going to just, it's potentially going to chip it up or do certain things, as well as that, skateboards and things that it's inviting there. But yeah, I believe it is a white, but it's an off-white. Actually, kind of more my thinking is, and Chip would know, he sees it every day in terms of that first or the rendering beforehand, having that. Because again, the school colors are blue and white. So, but
the other thing too about that,
yeah.
from a safety standpoint, I really like how clearly marked it is where kids will and staff will cross the road. That's one of the things we run into right now, is that it's people coming from all over the place. So keeping the safety in mind when you're doing this, that's really important, and we appreciate that.
We good? Anybody else? Is that helpful or harmful?
No, it's definitely helpful. I'm an architect.
Yeah.
I'm built to take criticism. Don't worry. Thank you.
seriously, not personally.
Yeah. All right, thank you for that. We also, now we'll move on to new business item number 8, discussion action, hazard field land swap. And Luke Murray will take that on when he comes back to his seat here. Yep.
Yeah, so just an update. So Sweeney Real Estate sent me what they call the Yellowbrook Review, which is the second step in the appraisal process, which verified that the original appraisal we got was valid and fits the federal standards. So now we have everything we need to submit into DEM. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll be finalizing that and getting everything in, and I'll be working with Paul Jordan. So we're well on our way. There's a lot of steps leading up to the process. That's part of the process. So I just wanted to give everyone an update. It's moving along.
Thank you for that. Also, and I apologize about the agenda item. We had tabled an item from our last meeting to this meeting, and I did not translate that onto this agenda about the environmental engineering reference checks. If we want to add that to the agenda, we are well within our rules and regulations where we can do that if someone would like to make that motion.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion to add consideration of the environmental engineer recommendation to town council to the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so that is now on our agenda. Kate, do you have something in particular you would like to share?
I don't know if you are able to pull up the evaluation matrix or if we even need to do that at this point. But just to revisit the scope of work as a whole, This is the Phase 2 environmental site investigation proposal. This was, this scope of work came from the findings from Ty and Bond's Phase 1 environmental site assessment that was performed. So they did identify a few areas that could potentially be concerning, some things like the automotive shop. There's some underground water tanks that don't have documentation attached to it. Curtis Corner has some agricultural history to it. So a couple of things that set off some red flags that said we should do some further investigation. We did receive a proposal from Ty and Bond. Their proposal was $128,000. In reviewing that scope of work, we reviewed it, with our internal team. We also reviewed it with the civil engineering and the environmental hygienists that are working on our projects currently, just to see, that one actually is the correct one, Luke, the one you have open. Yep. Just to see if it was the appropriate scope of work, because in my opinion, it seemed very excessive. They were proposing 30 borings, and a soil boring is a big drill rig that goes in and takes a big cylindrical soil sample, 20 to 30 feet in the ground. They were proposing about 30 of them on the Curtis Corner site and 32 at the high school, which is a lot. So we went through, did a little bit of a second opinion. We got some additional proposals. We talked to the civil engineer. We talked to our environmental hygienist on the project to see what their thoughts on the matter were as well. They had also agreed that that scope of work did seem excessive. We also did have some performance issues with Ty and Bond during the Phase 1. It took a very long time to get their report in, not terribly responsive. So we did get proposals from B&L companies and EA Engineering. Those are pre-qualified firms on the master purchase agreement. They also did propose on the initial Phase 1. Their approach was slightly different and seems to be much more appropriate. B&L Company is right now who we are recommending to move forward with the Phase 2 environmental site investigation. They're proposing 12 borings at Curtis Corner, 18 borings at the high school, significantly different. And within that, there's various different types of soil sampling and groundwater monitoring that goes into a very technical level I will not go into or try to explain because it's not my area of expertise. So B&L Companies, their proposal is at $88,100. And EA Engineering did come in at $90,422,000 for a similar scope of work. So we felt much more comfortable with two firms that are proposing based on their interpretation of the Phase 1 environmental site assessment of fewer borings. That does not mean if there is something that's on site that we need additional investigation for, that won't happen. But it is a good starting point where we can very carefully place where those soil borings are taken in association with the areas of concern that were noted. We did do reference checks. Chris Spiegel called through, checked all of their references. Both B&L and EA Engineering had great references. Left Field is working with B&L currently in North Providence, and they're doing a spectacular job. So being the low bidder of the three, it would be our recommendation to move forward with them.
I just have a clarifying question before we take any action. Again, being an advisory board, are we making a recommendation to the town council, and then on Monday the town council would then be expected to take action to actually give you clear direction?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. So,
Okay, just a question. Do you have what was the original budget you had for this?
You'll have to give me a minute to pull it up. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. I know the commissioning agent was well below the budget we had estimated.
It was. This is over the budget. Give me one moment. I can pull it up.
Sure.
Just as an aside, if you had a chance to read through the environmental report, there was nothing glaring as mentioned. So the amount of borings, I think, is more than substantial given the amount of site area. It's really, just covering ourselves to ensure that there's no surprises, which is a good idea always, so.
So our environmental engineering budget for the project was 50,000. So this is going to be upwards of our budget. We are under budget for commissioning agents, so we can transfer between those, and any other remaining overages would come out of contingency.
I think we were like almost 100,000 under on commissioning, so I think you're still under budget for the two.
We're pretty significantly, yeah.
So taking that into account, unless anybody has any other questions or comments, I will entertain a motion to make a recommendation to the town council to move forward with, is it BL?
Just get this one. I'll make a motion to award the environmental engineer contract to BL.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion passes, so a recommendation will move forward to the town council for the Monday meeting to, our recommendation would move forward with the 88,100 for BNL. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion items. We are now open for community comment. So if anybody would like to come up to the microphone and comment, we have a couple community members out there, if anyone's interested.
Should know that by now, right? Public correspondence, so I missed that 1 minute. Anything on public correspondence at the beginning?
Yes, we had a community member send an email asking about how the new high school is going to be situated on the site, and if there was reference to it on the website.
How about my communication about mass timber? What happened to that?
Oh, my apologies. We addressed, that actually was addressed at the town council meeting on Monday.
So how was I supposed to know that?
Yeah, no, I apologize, Doral. I've had a rough couple weeks, my dear. And I fully apologize profusely for not including that, because it did come in and I missed it. I'm sorry.
So what was said?
Would you like me to read it? Or do you want to know what was said at the town council? We had Gil Baines speak to it. If you would, it's not on this agenda.
Okay,
we can
so
put it on the next agenda if you'd like.
So I kind of got a drift about what happened, and it's kind of bringing back some bad vibes on the geothermal energy situation. Throughout this process, sustainability, this is my opinion, sustainability has gotten the shaft. Okay, whenever there was a question about sustainability, it always came to the cost, it always came to cost and not benefit. And it was sidelined. The geothermal was sidelined by some misinformation, including one of our consultants saying that well fields can go bad, which is almost, it's is not a correct statement. Well fields, all the research I've done, well fields almost never go bad. You might have a well or two in a well field stop working properly, but an entire well field's not going bad. And the investment tax credits that everybody said's going away, they're not going away, because most of those investment tax credits, the majority of the money going to investment tax credits from that green energy thing that Biden did are going to red states. So Republicans aren't going to let that stuff go away. Now, the schematic drawings, so Chris Spiegel sent out that email this week that included the schematic drawings, and those schematic drawings of the second and third floors are still not right. I brought this up at the last meeting, and I brought it up, and I sent an email. I said those schematic drawings are not right because it shows that the media center is on the third floor when it's is on the second. Isn't that correct, Chip? Wasn't it taken from the third floor and put on the second?
There were, at one point it was up on the third floor, but yes, it was on the second floor. It did come back down the second.
Okay, you're saying it's on the third floor but now, but those are not the drawings that Mr. Spiegel attached to this week's email. Okay? Okay, so that's not what's on what he sent out. So can we get that fixed? I agree with Mr. Manny on one thing, Jim. It's the exterior of the building is hideous. Now, I went back and I looked at, I have it on my phone here. I went back and looked at Studio Jade's original renderings of the outside of the building, and they're so much better. It's like not even night and day better. It was red brick, some like sand-colored brick, and then they had that vertical wall right next to the front entrance on School Street that had the outline of the Indian arrowhead. That's it's on our logo, on our town seal. That was in a color that was in like a granite color that matched Hazard School. Right? To me, all those elements. When I saw it, I said, I love it. That thing that we showed tonight, I hate it. Like, I agree, it belongs in Arizona. Sorry. That's, okay.
It's not just me, we're a team.
Now, the chillers, these chillers are going to be on the roof. Are you guys going to put a sunshade over the chillers?
There's going to be mechanical screens.
Mechanical screens to keep
The chiller will be ground mounted on the outside, the air handlers will be on the roof.
So you don't have to worry about so if you have certain things on the roof that are getting the sun, in the warmer part of the year, getting the sun beaten down on them, and if it raises the temperature of the air that's going in and out of those units, isn't that adding to your energy costs because you have to then cool that down?
Yeah, we'll have like louvers. There are going to be mechanical screens around the unit itself.
Well, what about over top of them to keep the sun off of them?
It won't be over the top of them, no. I mean, I'm not a mechanical engineer. I can't really speak too much to it, but.
Doral, can we, if it's okay with you, I'd like to take note of your concerns, and we can make sure that that's addressed in the next time we present.
Okay. I think I'm getting closer. I mentioned at the last meeting that what the possibility of, and I don't even know if it's a possibility, of diverting the storm water from the site into the Saugatucket River. Did anybody check into that? Instead of having underground cistern and having an open pit?
So Doral, they has to be treated before it goes into the river by regulation and law. So it has to go into some kind of cleaning to get the sediments out of it, whether that's going to be a surface one or underground one. It's still required before it goes back into any water way. So it can't go directly into the waterway.
Right, but if it goes in the cistern and it's filtered, then it could go into the river.
Then it could, yeah. And that's where it will end up eventually, through the stormwater system.
So that you wouldn't have to have that open pit. You don't want that. You don't want that open pit on Columbia Street collecting water.
We'll let the engineers work on it. It's going to be a depression. It's not going to be a pit. It's just going to be a low area. It'll be only wet during the storm, and it'll dry right out. It usually be grass.
Like the one on Robinson Street?
Doral,
That's a different design.
That's a different design.
Different design, different purpose.
Are you familiar with the design at Hazard Building right now?
No.
There's one already in existence in front of Hazard where the memorial is, where the flagpole is. If you want to take a look at that, that's more the design that we'll be using, and it will be nothing like Robinson Street, if that is helpful.
Okay, the last thing is, I gave something to the school committee this last meeting about the capacity of this building. If it's 153,000 square feet, the capacity using the tables that you guys were using for CTE and non-CTE is 720 students. And I'm putting this out here because the forecast enrollment for this town is not going to keep that school filled. And the only way we're going to keep it filled is if we can get our heads together with the town of Narragansett and start talking about regionalizing the high school at the point in time when their enrollment drops to a point where they're going to even have to do co-op athletic teams. They're already under 400, and when probably within 2 to 3, maybe 4 years after this school opens, the projected enrollments from our two towns for the high school, for the kids that live in those towns, would fit in their high school. And we need to do it, because otherwise Narragansett will have, like, when it gets to a point when they don't have a viable high school, they don't have enough students, here are their options. Turn into Jamestown and not have a high school, and let their kids go wherever they want, or regionalize. And if their options are regionalizing with North Kingstown, that has the facilities to take all that, and us, I would hope it would be us, because otherwise we're not going to have that building filled with students.
Doral, I appreciate you sharing that perspective. I just want to make it clear to the community that this school building committee has a charge with a particular plan that has been agreed by with RIDE, and we are not in charge of giving direction around regionalization. So, but I appreciate you making it clear in a public meeting. You brought it to school committee, you brought it to town council, so thank you.
Roberta Mulholland. Thank all of you for recognizing that that was not a traditional looking school in any sense of the word. It's disappointing because the last time I was here, there was another modern looking, very modern, but chopped up into 3 pieces looking school. I hope that the architect got it, that we need traditional. This is a 300-year-old town. It's not Arizona, it's not California. I had the opportunity to be out in the Midwest, and I saw a lot of schools. High schools, athletic complexes are huge there. That's where they have Friday night lights. Brick, they're brick. You drive by and you know it's a school. I didn't see any towers of glass, and these were new schools, and I'm concerned about the tower of glass on the north side. Who would put that on a building on the north side? Why do we have all that glass on the north side? The glass on the stairway in the front, that should be the south side. Kind of makes sense, but did we ask for that? I don't understand it. How is that energy efficient? Is it special glass? And is it actually 3 floors that are open?
So the natural lighting piece is the purpose of that, even though clearly the sun's coming on the other side. But it specifically asked, that was a direction that was given to them because we want to keep that natural light and the visibility out into the fields. So that kind of has been discussed in length, but I hear your points.
It just, a north side glass tower in New England doesn't make sense to me. So that's basically it. I'm happy that you're giving that direction, and you did sell the bond on that really nice brick school. It was on the float in the parade. It looked good. It was something to look forward to. It looked like a school. So I hope the next time, when we have that meeting for the abutters, is this going to be the design?
We're not showing the design for the abutters. It's a site layout. So it won't be focused on what it looks like. So because that's a specific requirement for our abutters and the planning board.
I understand
And
that.
so then the next forum, we'll have some more updates that will be brought to this building committee and also to the town and the school, and they'll continue to make tweaks to that, and we'll continue to present publicly before that final, or not final, but the next public forum, where we would do a presentation at the end of May. So we'll have more iterations as we move closer to the end of May.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your feedback, Roberta. So Doral, I'm going to give you that one more minute, but you please, Lord, I've had a really hard day. It's almost 7:30, and 1 minute, please.
Yeah, I forgot. So the tariff stuff, right? So 60% of the aluminum that's used in the United States comes from Canada. That's the processed aluminum. The rest of the aluminum, some of it comes from other countries, but the mineral, the starts with a B, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a mineral that you produce aluminum out of. That comes from Canada and other countries. And so when I was talking about the mass timber, I was wondering if you had thought about my suggestion to go to South County Post and Beam and seeing how they did it for that school in New York State, because maybe they have a source, maybe they have a U.S. source to produce that mass timber that wouldn't require us to get timber from Canada.
Thank you for that. I will ensure that that's on the next agenda. Speaking of which, our final item for discussion, item number 10, is our next meeting date, time, and potential agenda items. So that brings us, so we have our abutters meeting on the 9th from 6 to 8 at the South Kingstown High School in the cafeteria. And then, so our next building committee business meeting would be April 17th here at, although now that I'm saying that out loud, we have a town council and school committee budget hearing. So that would push us, we would have to push out to the 24th. Or to keep on schedule, we would be May 1st. I'm going to ask the project team, Kate, if you can come up to the microphone. Do we have any decisions that in order to stay on time, on schedule for all of our upcoming things, do we have any decisions that must be made between now and May 1st? And if we did the 17th, I'd like to discuss with maybe Luke if we do like a back-to-back school building into the town council, which I have a feeling would be less than ideal. But I just want to make sure that we're not,
Yeah, we usually, we've had, just about every meeting has an executive session that starts very early, so
Yeah.
it probably wouldn't work.
My only thought would be if we need a motion to submit our application to the planning board, which we're planning to do at the end of April.
say again?
I don't know if we do, but if we do,
I don't-
then,
Let me verify we'll verify with Luke.
okay.
Okay, so for now, right now, our next meeting in general is April 9th, the abutters meeting, like I said, at the high school, 6 to 8. And as of right now, the 17th, it would be our next scheduled school building committee meeting, though we may need to push that off to the 24th or the 1st. And I'll discuss with the town, and we'll make sure that there's a clear announcement dictating which that date will be. My apologies. So with that said, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? This meeting will adjourn at 7:32.